Today we're going to be going over the 25.1 release webinar. So Richard here, who is our customer success data success manager, will be able to cover things pretty end to end. Many of you have already met him, and if you haven't had the opportunity to, and you're a customer, you should take advantage of that. And if you're new to Dataedo, Richard is our expert who trains customers. You've probably seen videos online of him, explaining the tool. And then Hubert's one of our metadata engineers who will also be able to educate us today. So from there, I guess we'll head on to the agenda. So we'll kick things off by running through some of the improvements with data quality, and then open up to some of the connector improvements on OpenAI support through Azure. We will also be going over other improvements that are various with the new release, including additional new connectors, and then improvements there as well. At the end, we'll do a Q&A, but feel free to ask questions as we run through here. You can throw the questions in the chat, and then we will answer if we get a good stopping point. If not, we will jump in at the end and cover any questions you guys have. But without further ado, I'll hand it over to Richard.
All right, well, welcome everybody. Today we're obviously doing the release webinar for version 25.1, which has this really cool addition to data quality. And I'm going to spend a fair bit of time talking about data quality and especially the improvements there. So the big improvement for data quality in 25.1 is, whereas previously you had the ability to use predefined rules for your data quality, now you also have the ability to use custom rules. And as it says, the pre-builts are built in. Those are, we have about 90 of those. I haven't counted, but it is about 90 of those pre-built rules that you use, and you just apply those to columns and tables now in your data system. Run those, and it checks for various things like uniqueness, nullability, and lots of others. Like I say, there's probably 95 of those. With 25.1 now, we have custom SQL rules. Basically, you provide the SQL to find errors in your data systems, and then you put them into Dataedo to run them and report on them. All right, so the way this works is, when you create a new custom rule, the very first thing you are faced with is this question right here. Is it going to be predefined or custom? If you choose custom, your very first step 1 of 4, is you define that rule. Basically, you select your data source and you provide the SQL and proceed from there with the rest of that setup. So as I mentioned, we now also support rules for tables. So as you go through this process, you select whether your rule applies to a column or a table and proceed through that. I'm presuming that most of you have done quality rules before. We'll get into the tool here in just a second and go through this, but it's the same process. Once you get to this point, you just follow through and apply it and make sure that you have all of those settings that you need. All right, and once you have that rule set up, just like with the pre-built rules, you will see them in the list and you can open them. The difference with your custom rules is you can actually see the SQL right there in that list of your instances of your quality rules, so that you can see exactly what's happening there, along with all of the other settings about that. So I believe, yes, let's go over to portal here and have a look at that. Of course, your data quality is right there under data governance. If I click in there, I'm not going to go through all of the different tabs here. That's a different subject. I'm going to go straight to the rule instances tab, which is where you set up your new rules. So if we were going to go in and create a custom rule, we just say, create a rule instance. And as I mentioned, you're faced with this choice, predefined or custom. I will choose a custom rule right there. And as I mentioned, the very first step is to define this rule. So I'm going to choose that database. Notice this is a requirement. You have to choose one of your data connections for this, and your SQL needs to reside or reference assets in that data source. We can't do cross database joins yet. So all of your SQL needs to apply to assets in the data source that you select right there. But then we just create a custom SQL statement right here. So for example, I'm just going to create a simple one here. And I'm going to use the dim product table there, and I'm going to use the column name is color that I'm going to look at equals white, just as an example. So what this is going to do is it's going to look for any rows where white is the defined column, and it will report those as errors. So your SQL is looking for errors, not successes. That's important to remember. So the two requirements: stay in the same data connection and write your SQL to look for errors. All right. And we go on. And that was a column I'm looking at. So I have to find the table, and it was the product table right there. The column was color. So that now, if it fails, it will know where to report that in the data quality system. Select that. And do we want it to save the failed rows? Probably so that it will allow the reporting to go to the person responsible for the data cleansing to know what they need to fix. One of the things that's important here on the failed rows is, as you set this up, you do have the choice of what columns will be included in that one. I'm not seeing it here. It's on the predefined. I have to look into this and see where it is on this one, but it saves, you define which columns it's going to be. So for example, if we were looking for nullability on a column, and that's the only column we look at, there's no identifier. We don't know which row it was that failed. So you need something else there, another column maybe, to help identify which row that was.
And real quick, Richard, someone asked, can we use multiple columns here?
So as far as reporting the failures, yes. As far as assigning the rule to multiple columns, you would have to create a new rule instance to do that. So currently, one rule, one column application, or you could apply it to the whole table. That would work. But if you want to apply it like to two columns in the same table, or if you're doing something like looking for foreign key relationships, then you would need to create two rule instances of that. Just be aware, if it fails, it's going to double report that failure in your percentages. So now, once we're here on this final settings, we obviously can choose whether we're going to activate the rule now or leave it as draft. The library is set to custom because it's your custom SQL. Give it a name. So I'm just going to say the color is white. That's going to be my rule name. I could put a description here, and then we choose which dimension. I'm just going to leave this. Let's put it on validity for now. But you choose which one, and you choose your severity, which is part of your scheduling process. When you set up the tasks to run these, you can have them run on a different schedule depending on your severity. So you just choose whichever one is appropriate here, like that. And then you create your rule instance. And it's that easy. That rule I just created should be right here, the very last one, right there, 137. If I expand that, there's my SQL. It hasn't run yet, so there's no statistics about it yet. But when it runs, it will give me the results, whether it passed or failed, and all of those other things about that. So it's really pretty simple to set those up. While we're here, I want to mention that this page in 25.1 has been improved. You now have a lot of searchability options here. So for example, you can look for all of your critical severity levels or whatever. You can choose those. You can choose which dimension you're interested in. So if I'm interested in well, uniqueness, I don't have any rules in uniqueness. I can look at my timeliness and, oh, because I've got this set, I have to take that off. There we go. There's my timeliness rules, and you can see they're passing. I can look and see what has failed, what has errored out. I don't have any errors in my rules, but you have these searchable choices here to make it much easier for you to find and look at your quality rules and know what's going on. All right, let's go back over here, see what else we got. All right, so this is a good option right here where you can choose to look at rows that have no values as failures or successes. You have that option. So let's go back, and I have an example of this, right? I believe it's in here. Try this one. Yeah, here it is right here. So I have these two rules set up previously where I was looking one rule to make sure that the column was not empty, and I had another rule to make sure that it was unique. With this new setting, I can combine those. I can just look, is it unique, and set that option to treat nulls as failures. So basically, I could reduce my number of rules right here. And the value of this, of course, is if you have 2,000 rules that have to run, those are 2,000 queries that are going to run against your prod database to check these. If you can reduce those by combining these, that helps you with your improvement, with your performance.
And Richard, I don't know if you were actually on it there, but with the performance topic. So Andy asked, what is the load on Dataedo's server or database server? I assume query is loading your database with some overhead on Dataedo. Is it scalable for a large ecosystem?
So the load on your server is, these are queries. So you're going to be running queries against the server, and that's the extent of the load. So as I mentioned, if you have 2,000 queries or 2,000 rules, then yes, that is going to put some load there. That's why you want to use the scheduler to make these run at the appropriate time. You also want to look at your severity settings and have it, maybe you want your critical rules to run every day, but those that are maybe mediums and lows, you'll have them run every 2 weeks or every month or something like that. So you can reduce that load somewhat. The other thing to remember, of course, is these queries will be somewhat dependent on the number of rows in your tables. So if you have 5 million rows in a table, of course, that load and that timing is going to be greater than if you have, like my set here, where I have these very small tables with a few hundred rows maximum.
Perfect. And Hubert actually answered it in the chat, but Eduardo asked, is this tool usable with any connector, Snowflake included? The answer to that is not with every connector, but for Snowflake it is. We do have that outlined in our documentation for what the quality is applicable for.
Right.
And then Jiva did ask, is there any timeout setting?
I believe the timeout setting is the same setting that you have in desktop, where you set your timeout values for connections to the database, because it's running on that database connection to your data source. I believe it's the same setting there. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody who's on here. I believe the maximum setting is 10 minutes, 600 seconds, unless you go no limit which is where you set that timeout setting to 0, and then there is no timeout setting. As far as what connectors this works with, basically it has to be T-SQL based. So that's where the SQL is right now. So be sure to write your SQL that way. But it's things like SQL Server, and I know it works for Oracle, which is not T-SQL, so I just lied. But SQL based, Oracle, SQL Server, those big players there. I mentioned we now have the ability to apply rules to tables. So not only in custom rules, but also in the predefined. I mentioned we have about 90 rules. I think 5 or 6 of those are table rules. The rest of them are column rules. And table rules, as I recall, are things like row counts and things like that. Oh, there they are right there. There's that list of those. So row counts and a custom condition right there. All right. Run history. So after you start after your data quality is running, you will start to build up this history over time of the results here. So this is the list of times my rules have run. Remember, I had 129 rules in my history. I've got 404 times that they have run. And so this is by most recent at the top. And you can see what those results were, my success rate, basically. So in this rule, it was no failed rows, and so it was 100% success. Here, tested 600 rows, and there was 211 that failed, giving me that success rate. So this allows you to quickly see, what's happening with your rules. And this is kind of hand in hand with your insights and your operational dashboard, where this needs to load, where you're on the operation dashboard, you're seeing the failures. So all of these things work together to give you a picture of what your data quality looks like and how it's improving over time. That's down here where we see that improvement and those metrics over time. I should mention while I'm here that in order to create and manage your custom rules, you need to have an elevated role in user management. And that is, go to roles, it's right there. The Power Data Steward can do those custom queries. So if you want to create and manage custom rule queries, you must be in a Power Data Steward group, which means you'll probably have to create a group and assign it that permission. But just so you're aware, if you're trying to get to it and you can't seem to find that option to create custom rules, that's probably what it is. You need to have that Power Data Steward role assigned to you. I mentioned, let's see where we're at here. Okay. Is there anything else about data quality before I move on to OpenAI support?
Yeah, I was actually just gonna. We had 2. So, Gita said through web portal or client.
All of this is done in the portal, except for setting up the actual tasks that run the jobs. That's still done in the desktop app. 25.2, all of that will be integrated into portal. So for right now, you still do your management of the schedule in desktop. In a couple of months, everything will be in portal for the data quality.
And actually, Jiva meant so what was meant there was exporting the data quality results using web portal or client.
Portal.
Yep.
That's in portal. Yeah.
The export of the data quality results.
So the export, you can do simple, like this. If I click here, it's just going to download this picture, that sort of thing. The actual results, I'm not sure whether you can export here or not.
Previously asked, is this exportable into CSV or Excel? And Hubert said yes. So that's where that question came from. Sorry, I should have given context.
Yeah. as far as when things fail, you can get to those. I don't know if this one is saved. This one is not saved. But when you have that option where it saves the failed rows, that will appear on this screen right here, and you click the button, and yes, that comes out as a CSV or an Excel file.
Cool.
I hope that
Thank
answered the question, Eva.
And then it was also asked, can we see somewhere if the failed rows are reducing in case if team is resolving it via data fixes?
Yeah, you would be looking over here at these to watch over time how your data quality is improving, which is an indication of what is happening. You know, if your rules are not failing, then your quality is increasing. So you want to look at this graph here and see those things improving over time.
Nice. All right.
Okay.
We're good to carry on. Thanks, Richard.
All right. Okay, OpenAI support. This is an addition to, or an improvement to, our AI supported documentation feature. In the past, we only supported the connections directly to OpenAI. We now have this option where you can use OpenAI through Azure. And obviously, the reason for this is that way, that connection is managed through your Azure account, and so the security is enhanced there. We've had some people, some customers who their security teams won't let them connect directly to OpenAI, and this is an improved option for that. So if your company has OpenAI integrated through Azure, then you can use that connection, and it opens up the ability to use that AI supported documentation to companies whose security doesn't allow them to go directly to that. As far as using it, it's the same system. Just when you go into set up your model, your engine, you just choose the Azure OpenAI rather than directly to OpenAI. And then you just go through the settings just the same. It's the same process. And the key right here, that is, again, same as with the other, it's your key for your account. We don't supply that. So that way you're in control of your tokens and your pricing and all of that stuff. So we don't furnish that. You get that from your own OpenAI account. And when you access this, it's just another choice here. So here, obviously, we've got somebody who wants to run the AI supported documentation aid for the description of the customer table here. And so they just click on here and they choose whichever option is appropriate, and then that will run that and come back with the results the same. The process is the same for the two connections. It's just a different entry point to be able to get there. All right. What else is new in 25.1? So in search, this is been improved in that when you type something in the search bar, it will highlight in the results where that was. It just makes it a little more readable, a little more findable to be able to know what results are coming through. Let's see. The community. So all of these redesign features here, they are moving towards and working towards the improvements on the entire portal experience. So more integrated, more user-friendly. So for example, the community right here, the panel has been redesigned just to make it more cohesive and more readable. The big change here, of course, is rather than these options being in a drop-down choice, they're right there, so you can just click on them. I will mention that the place you get to community has changed slightly. So if I just go somewhere, community, you remember, was always over here. It's still here, so I can look at community there. It's also found right here, right next to your asset name. So you can get to that community panel there. And while I'm here, I'll show you same thing for notifications right there. You can see your notifications all right there. So notifications right there next to the search, and community in the side panel or next to the asset name.
And Jiva actually just asked, are there any plans for Copilot?
I think it's Chief. I think it's on the roadmap. I don't know. I know they're addressing these different AI applications in a particular order. I'm not sure where Copilot falls on that list. I think it might be like, so we've just finished numbers 1 and 2. I think Copilot might be number 4 after Google, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But I know it is on the roadmap.
Cool. And a couple other questions that are rolling as we're answering these. Jiva also asked, can we manage tasks for data quality engineer from community?
No. So the community is primarily for messaging and those sorts of things. It doesn't do tasking. Um, but
Well, couldn't you make it actionable, Richard? Like if you created an open and then made it an actionable thing
somebody,
and tag someone?
somebody would have to create a message that
Yep.
assigns an action to somebody that says go and deal with this data quality issue, but it's not going to integrate it directly, is what I meant.
Got it.
So the idea of there is a failure and it will automatically notify someone, not yet. That feature doesn't exist yet.
Great. And then there was
Uh,
also the question, can admin users sign up for notifications via email, especially for failed data quality rules?
that is coming. That is coming. We're working on a functionality called Digest, which you can sign up for. You can configure to have a daily or weekly summary of what's happening in the catalog for those things that you're interested in, including system updates, data quality rules, notifications, messaging, community messages. All of those things would be part of the digest that is coming. I do not have a time frame on that. I know it's coming soon.
Great. Thank you, Richard.
In the meantime, you can see these things on your front page. When you log in, you've got things like your community updates, those things that you have bookmarked, things you work with. They're here. There's just not a blast out yet. And I will mention, based on what domains you are part of, the quality is integrated in with the domains too. So when you go in there, you'll see the data quality for this domain. So people could have domains that are appropriate for them, and see how they are doing specifically with their domain and their data quality for those link assets. Okay, so I mentioned notifications and just showed you quickly where that is up there next to the search bar. And again, this is a redesign option just to get things more modern looking and more user friendly. Same thing for workflows redesign. In the past, the workflow status was assigned by a drop-down list. You would click on this and it would make a drop-down list where you would select. Now it's in a small window that opens. So it's just a presentation change. Tooltips have been improved so that when you hover over something like a badge, if there is no badge, you get a hint. If there is a badge already existing and you hover over it, it tells you, who created the badge and if they put a comment on it, things like that. So just more intelligent tooltip options here. All right, other improvements. We now have the option to delete domains from within the portal. To do that, you would go into the domain. You have your 3-dot menu right there, and you have a delete option. Obviously, this is available only to the editors, not to viewers in them, so they're not going to be deleting stuff. But even then, I would say be very careful. You don't want to delete something by accident, because if you delete it, it is gone, and any work you've done there, any of the descriptions, any of your linkages, all of that stuff will be gone. So be very careful with that, but it is available now in Portal. Easier agent installer. That's really useful because for data quality, you have to have agent installed and you have to have those tasks set up to run those quality rules. It also applies to updating your profiling and importing metadata changes. So the agent installer is now much easier to run. It is an exe file that you can download from the website. Same place you get the portal download and the desktop download. There's also an agent install download there. URL
real quick,
yeah.
I guess while we're in transition, you've asked how will the OpenAI be utilized?
So that's used just very quickly here. For example, if we wanted to very quickly create definitions for glossary terms, I could go in here and let's just choose a term, and I don't have the permission here. I didn't give myself permission, but it would appear right here as a button where you can hit that button and it will automatically create a suggested description for you. And then you have the choice to save it or not. So it's a way to very quickly get content into your catalog. That's the whole purpose of that functionality.
And then Eric asked, it was a question, but multiple languages available for the definition?
That's a good question. The prompt that goes from Portal to OpenAI is going to send things like column names, table names, schema names, nullability, data type, all of those sorts of things. So it's going to send it that way. I guess if they were in a foreign language and if your AI is trained to answer in a different language, it would. I don't know, but it seems like it ought to. If those fields are named in another language, then the results ought to come back in that language. Something to test, I guess. I don't know the answer to that, Eric. I was going to talk about the URL custom field. So that's of course, in your catalog settings where you set your custom fields, either in Portal or in desktop, and where you can create a custom field. Type now has this one that's a URL, which is a live link. So this would be useful. I know I've heard people say they wanted to put their SOP in here, but they didn't want to actually put all of the text. They just wanted to put a URL that people could click and get to it. So this is something like that, where it can have a live URL to an external location. That's the purpose of this. All right. Next, Steward Hub, fully functional in Portal. Cancel this. So Steward Hub is right there, fully functional and integrated with workflows. So all of that is now in one place. You don't have to jump back and forth between desktop and Portal, giving you, obviously, a better user experience here. Steward Hub is available to those people who have editor permission. So people in the stewards group, data stewards group, and the Power Data Stewards group. All right. We're making good progress here. New connectors. Got some exciting new connectors here. Open Lineage is the most exciting one. And here we go, Open Lineage, which also supports, as you can see, obviously, the column level lineage. So my understanding of Open Lineage is that it is applicable in places where we either don't have a full connector or you need to add more information to an existing connector, such as Snowflake or dbt. Is that the right characterization there, Hubert?
Yes, I would also add that it's also supported by Apache Spark, and that way you
Okay.
can use it with AWS Glue or Databricks when automatically the Spark sends the metadata to Dataedo, and then you can see the lineage from the Spark transformations.
Okay, good. Yeah, so it's just another enhancement to help you get more lineage automatically. If you need to use this option, reach out to me, and I will either learn it and teach it to you, or I'll set up a meeting with Hubert and he can teach all of us at the same time. All right. Coalesce connector. Again, this is, as you can see, obviously, supporting column level lineage, all of that automatic coming through. And again, if you need help with these, please reach out and we'll get you the support you need. The PeopleSoft connector for Oracle. This is a special instance of Oracle connector designed specifically for PeopleSoft. It has some enhancements there that make it work well for PeopleSoft. The Hevo connector, again, for those people who need it, it's important. It's not a highly used one, so I don't want to get too deep into that. Maybe Hubert, if you want to, say briefly something about that, or if not, that's fine. Not one that we've had a lot of demand for, but those people who need it, need it. Same thing with the PeopleSoft. Okay, connector improvements. Now supporting synonyms for SQL Server, and that is in both the import and in the lineage creation. So synonyms there, if you've got those set up, those will now be handled in the import and the lineage. MySQL and Maria database, MariaDB, column level lineage for procedures and functions. So that's a big improvement there. SSIS supporting parameters. Again, this is not a commonly used functionality there, but those people who need it, need it. And so we have that functionality there in both the import and the lineage again. All right. Here's just a picture showing that synonyms work there for SQL Server and the lineage for MariaDB and MySQL. Other improvements, Tableau, we're now importing report usage, which is it's basic statistics about, how much your reports are being used and when, number of viewers, that stuff. This is at a high level. It's not going to report specific users who signed in, but it will give you number of views and number of distinct viewers who are using these reports over time. Of course, the value of this is it helps you to know, do you have reports that are not being used? And then you can investigate, is it because they are duplicates, or they are outdated, or they are poorly designed, and so people don't like them? It helps you to find those problems and start fixing them. All right. The Purview connector. This is again, not one that's commonly used, but those people who need it, need it. The important thing here is that Purview uses different types of assets than Dataedo does. And so we have this ability to map those asset types from the Purview categories to the Dataedo categories. And so that's part of that import process there. But it's, again, like I say, not something that is applicable to everybody, but those people who need it definitely need it. Okay, all right, and here's the interesting one. The metadata loading process continues to be improved. The performance continues to improve. I don't have specific numbers for how much that improvement of that process will affect you, because there are so many variables. It's impossible to say that this is going to give you a certain amount of improvement on your processes. All I can say is it is improved. Please look at your import times and pay attention so that you can see that those import times are improving. Like I say, I don't have exact numbers on that because everybody is unique and the complexities of those, but just watch those, and I'm sure you'll start to see those load times improving. And of course, the place you look at that is in your agent, where you look at all those executions of those loads over time, and you should see that improvement. All right, that gets us to Q&A. What questions do we have that we haven't answered already, Chase?
For the most part, I think we're pretty, but other than that, it looks like we're good. Guys, any other questions that we should be answering? We're happy to cover a variety, even if it doesn't have, anything associated with the release. We're happy to chat. You have a couple of educated guys in the room with Hubert and Richard, so we can cover a variety of topics. So it was asked to showcase exporting the data quality results.
Okay, if I can find one, I will look and see if I can find one.
When I set up my there was also a question about Azure login support with groups.
Okay, Richard,
okay.
If you go to run history, and then you get the gear button on the top right side of this table. On the top, there should be a gear, and here you are able to export to CS file or the Excel file.
Okay, yeah. So that's exporting your result summaries. Yeah, that's good. What I was going to look for is on my actual instances, any of those that I've got marked as saving the failed rows, and I didn't set it up for all of them, so I have to search for it. I didn't set it up for most of them, actually. But when those exist, there's a button right here, and you just click the button and it downloads that file that has a list of the rows that failed. So you can hand that to an engineer to go and do the data cleansing. So I'm sorry, I don't have an example of those. I didn't set it up to save those on all of these, so that's why we're not seeing them.
Thanks, Richard. And then, I mentioned the other one, but Azure login support with groups.
So I am not an expert on Azure. I would say if you're having login problems with Azure, send a note to support, and they'll be able to help you best with that.
Awesome.
Sorry, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not an expert on Azure.
And then Andy asked, are there further evolutions on the API plan?
Do you mean the public API?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I believe that continues to be improved. Is that right, Hubert? I know that a release or two ago there was a mention of a bunch of additional columns that were being supported. I think it was posts, post functions that were being added. I looked at that list just a couple of days ago, and it seems like there were a couple on there that still said planned. Presumably those are still in the works.
The last question that we have so far, I did want to mention, so for some of you that don't have access to the more current Dataedo plans that do include the quality and a few others, we have a few contacts there on the exit page, but I'll throw in chat like a general link, right? So if you have any questions regarding your plan or adjusting that plan, I would reach out to sales@dataedo.com, and the appropriate person will get back to you quickly. And then the other side of that is we also have live chat on the website. So if you forget any of these emails that we have on the screen, just go to our homepage and you can live chat with us, and we'll get you in the right spot. But I believe, Richard, that looks like all the questions. Like, we're going to wrap up. So thank you to Richard and Hubert for leading us through.
Great. Thanks everybody for joining. And as I mentioned, if you have questions, you can reach out to the right person there. If it's a training thing, absolutely reach out to me, and I'll be happy to assist.
Perfect. Thanks everyone. Bye.
All right.